Hello and welcome to Watches with a Woman. I am here today after a long hiatus to talk about the Bulova Oceanographer. So this is also known as the Devil's Diver because it goes to 666 feet underwater, and I kind of like that. So it is actually based off of a watch that Bulova originally did in the 1960s and 70s. It was a dive watch that looked very similar to this modern counterpart. And if you know me, you know that I love a vintage feeling watch or a watch inspired by a watch from history. For example, one of my favorite watches, is the Omega Prof. So it actually has similar vibes to the Doxa Sub 300T diving star that I did a video on a while back. It has a similar kind of cushion tonneau shape case, which I think really complements the watch in a way that it makes things more unique, especially when it comes to a watch like a tool watch, like a dive watch, where it can be a little bit funkier versus a dress watch that might just be the traditional round shape or maybe a square shape. So this one is in the green color. It is more of a teal versus a traditional green. So when we take a closer look at this watch, you'll notice that the indices are round and the hands are actually very rectangular, very square and boxy in shape. And I think that dichotomy is really kind of fun. It almost feels like a video game of little bits that are coming around this dial. So it's really fun that the seconds hand actually has a round, almost lollipop end to it. It brings that circularness of the indices into a moving component, and that movement across the board, sweeping around all of the circular indices, is really fun. It also is loomed. So I will include a loom shot so that you're able to see, because of course this is a dive watch. You should be able to read this underwater. If you cannot read it in dark conditions, is it really a tool watch? Which, most of us aren't wearing it for, but come on, we want functionality. Speaking of functionality, I think that the bezel is actually a really fun one to rotate. It has a super mechanical feel. It's almost like a ratchet. It has very distinct clicks, and the way that it moves, let's see if you can hear this. So it moves how it feels. Every single click that you hear, you feel in your fingertips. Like most dive watches, it is a unidirectional rotating bezel, meaning that it will only rotate in one direction. This is so that if you are diving and you bump it into something, it's not going to show that you have more air. It will show that you have less. Safety first, folks. So in addition, it does have a calendar, so you can see the date. I really like this on watches. That being said, when I have a lot of watches in my rotation, which maybe a few of you do, I do not set the date every time that I wear it. So if you're ever looking at my Instagram and you're like, oh, that's interesting, that day is way off, I could have taken it another day. More than likely, I did not set the date. So I don't think it is a completely necessary thing on this, especially given, even though it has a magnified area around it, not a cyclops in sort of the traditional Rolex sense where it's round, shows the date. It is square like the date box, but it doesn't magnify it that much. It's honestly probably better because it does not take away from the cleanness and legibility of the dial. That being said, are you going to be checking the date while you're underwater? No. Are you going to be checking it out and about? Maybe. So if this is going to be one of a few watches in your collection, the date window might be more important to you. I really enjoy the crosshairs on this. So some vintage watches that I've enjoyed looking at have that. I think it gives a almost sportiness to it. It's like looking down the crosshairs of a scope. It makes it feel pointed. It makes it feel noticeable, and it adds an extra geometric element in addition to the round dials, the triangle of the 12 o'clock marker on the bezel, and the more rectangular hands. So you'll notice that there are no numbers on the dial aside from the date. I think that that works very well. And you'll see this on most dive watches. Some of them will have numbers, or they'll have them marking, 12, 6, 3, 9. But it keeps the dial clean, legible, and kind of fun. It looks like a beach ball in a way. And I feel kind of silly saying that, but I think that watches have a whimsy to it, and this watch has a whimsy. So the crown has a lovely texture to it. You'll notice the kind of triangular grip it has around, so you can more easily set it. It is a screw down crown. Thank you for having that for a dive watch. I think that the different polishing between the middle link portion of the bracelet and the external link portion of the bracelet, where the internal is a little bit more satin brushed and the external is a little bit shinier. And it's very subtle difference. It's almost as if the light is playing off of them in a different way. And I tend to prefer a satin finish on watches that are more tool watches. But this watch actually works very well with the shine and the glint on the case and the links. So the clasp, you can see that it says Bulova. It has a lift pull tab that you can just lift with your fingers. The next aspect of it, you need to pinch the buttons. This is a safety feature to make sure that you aren't accidentally unclasping it. And it also has a very satisfying click in the way that the bezel has a very satisfying click to it while you rotate. The sides of the case come down in a lovely little slope, and that slope translates into very curved, short lugs. This allows it to hug the wrist. With a case width of 44 millimeters, it could wear really large, but because the lugs are short and sloped, it wears incredibly well. In addition to the side of the case coming down into a flat side, it will then tuck back under and it hugs the wrist very tight. So if you look down at your arm, you aren't going to see a lot of extra spacing. It does have 3 micro adjustments on the clasp, which will allow for a tighter fit for smaller wrists and for larger wrists too. You want that more customizable fit. I've found watches that don't have that. Honestly, I will be in between the link size. The original watch from the 1960s originally retailed for $95. It now retails for $795. That being said, at the making of this video, when I looked on the Bulova website, it was on sale for $477. And if you think about this in terms of a watch that might be aesthetically similar, and you are just looking to get into watches and you don't want to spend more than in the hundreds of dollars, the Doxa, in comparison, the Doxa sub costs $2,590, whereas this on sale at the making of this video for $477, if I'm a newer watch collector or even the watch collector that I am, that is a fun watch, especially considering that I've been mostly wearing lighter, fun watches that I'm not afraid to travel with and do things with. The watch has a 42-hour power reserve and a sapphire crystal with a blue anti-reflective coating on it. In case you are wondering about adding your own customizable straps to this, the lug width is 20 millimeters, so you're going to have plenty of choices. And I really like that, especially considering NATO straps that are out there, because I think that having a fun watch with a fun dial and being able to customize that with a funky pattern for a day out on the sun versus a more subtle variation or a sporty variation, depending on what your aesthetic is or what you want to accomplish for the day, is a great way to change up a watch and allow you to wear it to many occasions. And this is a watch that, and some people might call me out for this, I would wear this to dress occasions for sure. I think that you dress this up, you are going to have fun, and the shine polish on the watch is perfect for a dress occasion. So I hope that you've enjoyed one of my first videos back. And again, this is such a fun watch. and it is a practical watch. It is a watch that you can get for good money, that you can wear for many occasions, and honestly, just have fun with, which is what I do with watches. So thank you for coming back to my channel, and this is Watches with a Woman. Thank you so much.